sitting on construction at the moment, I think. You all righty? In a minute? Yeah, sure.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you here today for the IET's 4th annual Defence Networking event. Just a little bit of housekeeping. There's toilets on either side here. One of the escalators goes up, one of the escalators goes down, and the lifts are at the back if we need to get out of here in a hurry. I'd really like to I'm going to love listening to the presentations that we hear today, because today's a little different to the first 3 defence professional networking events that we had. We had Christopher Pine speak at our first 2 and tell us about the future that was coming. And today we're going to hear about the practicalities of shipbuilding in South Australia. We're going to hear from one of our speakers, Chris Keane from BAE Systems, talking about the Hunter frigate project future that's coming. And we're going to hear from Paul Evans, the last of our speakers today, about the practicality of building 3 air warfare destroyers, and we're just about to deliver the last of those 3, and I think we'll hear that we're really in very good hands with what's happened in the air warfare destroyer project. So, yeah, I think the difference about this year is it's going to be about the reality of shipbuilding, and it's almost like the passing of the baton from the first surface shipbuilder in South Australia to the second surface shipbuilder, and I'm really excited to hear that. So I'd like to welcome Chris Keane to the stand, and first of all I'd like to say thank you very much to BAE Systems for being our platinum sponsor today, and to GHD for being our prime sponsor as well. Thank you.
Look, thanks, John, and look, it is a real pleasure to be here today to talk to you. I was reflecting as I came in, it was only 3 days ago that I was here for the U2 concert, and it's my sorry task to tell you today's not going to be nearly as entertaining as it was last Tuesday. Can I start by acknowledging the Ghana people as the traditional custodians of this land, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Also like to acknowledge my industry colleagues today, Paul Evans and Rohan Koenig, John Noonan, the chair of the IET, and members of the executive committee who are here today. It's also nice to see a lot of familiar faces in the audience from BAE Systems and a lot of industry colleagues around the place. So just a few introductory remarks from me. My name is Chris Keane. I'm the Chief of Future Business for BAE Systems Australia. In essence, my role is about striking that right balance between delivering on the contracts that we currently have with the ADF, of which we've got over 200, but also establishing that corporate strategy, that enterprise strategy that we want, which is going to set the direction for where we want to be in 5, 10 and 15 years' time. Now, I'll acknowledge right up front that I'm not an engineer. So I'm going to leave all the technical questions to Rohan and Paul, who are far more qualified than me to answer them. But what I am, and my friends and colleagues will attest, is I'm a technology tragic. So it's been a real pleasure working for one of the world's leading technology companies for the past 13 years. I'm also a passionate South Australian, so when I was asked to talk to you about what's happening in the defence industry in South Australia, I was really delighted. So I want to talk to you today about, what's happening at the moment, but what I also see the future holds. Now, let me begin by saying that it's obviously a really exciting time for the defence industry here in South Australia. For a sector that's been far too familiar with the cycle of boom and bust, it's fair to say that we're right in the middle of a strong growth phase at the moment. And what's even more exciting is that we have a federal government and a state government who's shown its willingness to invest in the long term, so that we're not only delivering on the programs that that we currently have in the pipeline, but we're building an industry capability which is enduring. And I think for me, that's one of the most exciting things about being in the defence industry at the moment. But with that opportunity comes challenge. And the collective challenge that I think that we have as an industry and as government at the moment is that we need to ensure that we've got the right skills in the right place at the right time to deliver on this once in a generation opportunity. So even though I'm not an engineer, I know that most of you in the room are, so I thought I'd throw some facts here to start the day, just to illustrate the sheer scale of the challenge that we're facing at the moment. Now in big hand terms, BAE Systems is looking over the next 3 years for an additional 1,500 engineers. When you look at the fact that currently we've got 4,200 employees at the moment in BAE Systems Australia, and our engineering workforce numbers about 1,500, that's a doubling of our engineering workforce in just over 3 years, which is really significant by any measure. So to put that in context, let's just stop for a minute and break that down. If you look at the pipeline of how many engineers are coming out of the system over the next 3 years, it's estimated that Australian universities will generate around 34,000 engineers in that period. While that may sound impressive, only about 25% of those engineers are actually going to be eligible to work in the defence sector. And if you're optimistic, and I'm a glass half full kind of person, I hope that around 50% of those people we can hope for would like to work in the defence sector. Now BAE Systems alone, that leaves us with 4,000 people to choose from. Now BAE Systems alone needs over a third of those available engineers. Now that is the scale of the challenge we're facing. It's not just BAE Systems Australia, it's industry-wide, and it's the greatest challenge that we have at the moment. So with that in mind, I'd like to talk to you about 3 things today. First, I'd like to talk about the current defence environment and some of the things that are driving the growth in our sector. I'd like to talk to you about a couple of key programs that we have at the moment, notably Hunter, which John's mentioned already, and also I'd like to give you an update on another major program in South Australia, which is the Jaw and Gimli Over the Horizon Radar Network. And lastly, I'm going to touch upon some of the things we're doing to meet the skills challenge. So let's look at some of the factors that are driving growth in defence. Firstly, we're faced with some of the most uncertain strategic circumstances since the Second World War. Strained US-China relations, developments in the South China Sea, civil unrest in Hong Kong, and a general deterioration in the global rules-based order are all contributing to an increasingly tense strategic environment, particularly in our region. And secondly, sustained economic stability in the Asia Pacific has seen increased military spending across our region. The Defence White Paper estimated that by 2050, nearly half the world's economic output will be generated by the region. To put this in a defence context, the number of submarines in our region is expected to grow from 200 to 250 in the next 8 years. That's a significant increase. And with this rapid paced growth, security, uncertainty and complexity is likely to increase, and we stand to face continued threats to the security of our region. In order to counter those threats and realise the potential for growth both here, Australia, and across our broader region, stability is essential. To help maintain this stability, Australia needs a modern defence force which is supported by a world-leading defence industry able to influence that strategic environment. The other lens that we need to look through when we consider the current defence environment is the ways in which technology is changing the battle space. In the past, Western powers have enjoyed significant technological advantage over our adversaries, but in recent years that gap has narrowed considerably, and in some cases it can be argued that gap no longer exists. Technology is evolving at a far more rapid rate than it used to, whereas in the past, particularly defence technology would often take decades to come to market. That period is now years, and it's narrowing considerably still. The nature of conflicts is also evolving. Our customers are seeking 5th generation capability now, capability that needs to be interoperable, not just across domains, but with our Five Eyes partners and our allies. In this environment, innovation and our ability to innovate and bring technology to the market quickly is what's going to deliver the capability edge to the armed forces moving forward. And that's what's so exciting to me about working in defence at the moment. It's that focus on innovation, collaboration, and winning that contest of ideas. It's how can we do things differently, how do we solve complex technological problems, and how do we do it better, faster, and more efficiently. We had a great example of this recently. I've got a picture of this up here, and we've got some people from the team who contributed to it in the room quite recently, where we had a trial with an M113 armoured personnel carrier, which we converted into an autonomous vehicle. Now, this was a project that was designed in partnership with the Army to meet a specific challenge. How do we utilise an ageing platform which no longer meets the protection standards we require to be used in certain hostile environments? And how can we use technology to keep our armed forces out of harm's way? So we use skills and capabilities in autonomous systems that we've developed primarily in the aviation sector and successfully applied them in a completely different environment. To watch this group of talented engineers and project managers come together to achieve a complex task in such a short period of time was really inspiring, and it's indicative of the environment that we're working in right now, that spirit of collaboration and partnership and the intent just to get things done. So that leads me to talk about our customer. And it's an odd term in many ways when we talk about customer in the defence sector, but I think it's important because it illustrates why it is we do what we do. Because what we do in defence really matters, and that is to serve those who protect us. And that's what guides us at BAE Systems, and I know our defence industry colleagues in the room, in everything that we do when we're making our decisions from day to day. But the way in which we provide the capability edge has changed remarkably over the past couple of years, and it's been a real noticeable shift. It's been a cultural change within the sector. The Defence Industry Policy, which was released in 2016, and it was championed by Christopher Pyne, which John referenced earlier, had a significant impact on the sector, really changed the relationship between defence and industry and set a new paradigm for the way in which we'd operate. And it's a partnership which is really underpinned by a sense of partnership and collaboration. A closer relationship throughout the capability lifecycle. And the other significant change in policy that's happened, and it's been really evident both nationally and here in South Australia as well, is the increased focus on developing a sovereign industrial capability. So there's been a real shift on the part of government in terms of wanting to see a dividend for the investment in the defence sector. That investment in the major programs and the recapitalising the ADF has a dividend in terms of the capability that we build, which is sovereign and enduring. This is going to require closer relationships between defence primes and SMEs as we seek to grow the enterprise capability and our capacity to not only meet our domestic obligations, but also to grow the defence export business. There's no better expression of this ambition than the plan to create a complex naval shipbuilding capability in Australia. So that brings me to the Hunter Class program. It's a program that I work closely on, and it's one that continues to be really close to my heart. So for those in the room that aren't familiar, the Hunter Class Frigate program is the biggest surface ship program in Australia's history, and it's one of the largest in the world today. And I'm delighted to say it's a program that's being delivered right here from Adelaide with great support from across Australia and around the globe. But the most exciting thing I think about this program is not the fact that we're going to be delivering 9 world-class anti-submarine warfare frigates. It's the fact that Commonwealth has asked us to build a sovereign, continuous naval shipbuilding capability in Australia. This is the foundation of our shipbuilding capability moving forward, and it's no mean feat. It's a program that's going to span decades from a skills perspective and will employ people who have not even been born yet. When we look at some of the programs that we work in across defence, that's one of the things that's so engaging, it's so exciting to be part of this industry because the programs endure for decades and they have lasting impacts in terms of the careers they spawn and the technologies that they deliver. At its peak, the Hunter program will contribute more than 6,300 jobs to the Australian economy, with ASC Shipbuilding, which is a fully owned subsidiary of BAE Systems now, employing 2,400 people directly in the Osborne Naval Shipyard, with thousands more to be employed directly in the supply chain. In addition, around 1,000 graduates and apprentices will embark on their careers on this program. In fact, one of the interesting facts I was talking with the team about the other day, it's estimated by the end of the Hunter program, 75% of that workforce will have started, including the senior executives, as graduates or apprentices on that program. Essentially, our aim through Hunter is to grow a vibrant, innovative, an enduring Australian sovereign industrial capability that is capable of independently designing and building the next generation of complex warships in Australia. And this is the fundamental difference from the programs we've embarked on in the past, which have suffered from a boom and bust cycle, and we've seen that in previous shipbuilding endeavours. So it's really pleasing from an industry perspective to see that commitment from government and be able to invest with certainty for the long term that we're going to be building upon this capability that we're going to build through Hunter. So that's why we're investing in research and technology, so the Australian industry and the Australian shipbuilding workforce is well versed in Industry 4.0 technology to support activities that will be undertaken in a modern digital shipyard. Work in this regard is well underway with a partnership already signed with Flinders University to operate a joint testing laboratory in the Tonsley Innovation Precinct in South Australia, and we're working with Australian industry to test the technologies we're going to feature in that new yard. Digital shipyard content is all about connectivity within our business, with our supply chain, and also with our customer. It's an enabler of higher productivity, quality, and safety outcomes, and it's the backbone upon which you build sovereign capability. Imagine for a second, instead of paper drawings, our people are accessing real time on an iPad. They're tracking materials from suppliers using RFID technology, and the warehouse is updating its list and its log of supplies and triggering reorders where necessary. Workers can then take photographs of their completed work, and the quality controllers can inspect it in real time. And any changes that have needed to be required in the production environment can then immediately be fed back into the design. The point of all of this is to say that there's been a lot of talk about Industry 4.0 and digital shipyard, but the reality in terms of future shipbuilding is far different to what we currently understand of the shipbuilding industry in Australia. It is driven by innovative technology that needs to attract Australia's best and brightest talent to succeed. So where are we on the program now? So it's just over a year ago that we signed the contract for Hunter. It seems like an age ago, but it's only been 12 months, but there's been a lot that's been happening in that time. And I'm really pleased to report that the program started really strong. The team's built to well excess of 500 already in that short 12 months, including around 50 people who are currently seconded to our shipbuilding facilities in Glasgow, working with our UK team on the UK Type 26 frigate program. Those individuals will bring that invaluable experience back to Adelaide as we prepare for the cut steel date in 2022. Right now what we're doing is we're preparing for the commencement of a 2-year prototyping phase where we're going to get the chance to test the new shipyard and all the tools, systems and processes which are going to support that. And this inclusion of a prototyping phase in the Hunter Class program is a really significant one because it's an investment in the long-term capability of that shipyard, and it's going to really assist the enterprise and industry and defence to make sure that we hit the ground running and the Hunters are successful from day one. As I'm sure Paul will test, and Paul's got a lot of fancy videos coming in his speech coming up, there's a lot of activity happening at Osborne right now. For those of you who have visited in the past 12 to 18 months, the new shipyard's really rising out of the ground. We're really excited to see what the future holds for the naval shipbuilding industry in South Australia and how we build upon the great success that was commenced over 10 years ago with the Air Warfare Destroyer program, and a lot of the skills and capabilities that were built through those programs, and a lot of the individuals that worked on those programs are now helping to establish that foundation for Hunter as we move forward. So it's a really exciting time for the shipbuilding industry in South Australia. Another innovative homegrown technology, which is based right here in South Australia, is the Gingerly Operational Radar Network. Whilst Hunter and frigates tend to dominate the headlines, Jawn really is a quiet achiever, and it's one of the jewels in our nation's ISR capability. It's a world-leading, unique technology that again was developed and continues to be managed right here out of Adelaide. For those of you not familiar with Jawn, effectively it's the eyes and ears of our Royal Australian Air Force. It monitors our northern approaches through a network of 3 remote HF radars in Queensland, WA and Northern Territory, and it plays a critical role in supporting the Australian Defence Force's air and maritime operations, our border surveillance operations, disaster relief and search and rescue. The $1 billion 10-year upgrade which we've just embarked upon will significantly increase both the surveillance capability and the data gathered by this network. It's going to call for over 450 specialist engineers and graduate engineers to evolve the DNA of the program and take it to that next level. In May this year, we opened up a world-class HF laboratory in SA to develop the new technology that will essentially be the brains of this program upgrade. BAE Systems' investment in the facility will enable continued research and development of new technologies that will be integral to increasing the surveillance of the northern and western approaches to Australia, and it will be a catalyst for the research and development of Australian HF technologies to continue to grow the nation's defence exports. The investment in the laboratory will ensure we can significantly improve the radar's capability and better support this critically important defence asset. It's a unique facility that will enable the development and testing of specialist equipment to ensure that the decade-long upgrade realises the full potential of Jawn beyond 2042. Now, Jawn's one of those programs which is common to us in defence in terms of it does amazing things. The technology that we develop through that program is really, truly world-leading, and it doesn't exist anywhere in the world. We sometimes can't talk about what it can do for operational reasons, and that's a challenge in our business, but we should realise the fantastic engineering work and development work that's happening right here in South Australia. The other thing that strikes me about programs like Hunter and Jawn is their longevity. The original idea for Jawn was conceived in 1974, a year before I was born. But here we are about to embark on another evolution of that capability, another upgrade which will see it endure for another 20 to 30 years. There are people working at BAE Systems right now who have only worked on that program. They've worked in many different challenging capacities in lots of different roles and had an extremely fulfilling career working on world-class engineering programs right here in South Australia. And there's now going to be people working on that program in the future who haven't even been born yet. That's such a great legacy. So that's two examples of world-leading defence capability that's being delivered right here in Australia, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. We've obviously got the 12 attack class submarines, which are also going to be built down in Osborne. The tail fins for the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter are being constructed right out of Edinburgh, at BAE Systems facility out there. I know Raytheon are just about to turn the soil on a new facility at Mawson Lakes for the final assembly of the ground-based air defence systems, which is a significant program in our defence capability. And South Australia is also a real centre of excellence and home for much of Australia's integrated surveillance and intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities, or ISREW for those who are fond of acronyms. In this space, in addition to the Jawn capability, which is a really centrepiece of that ISREW capability, we're also seeing the introduction into service of the PAA, Poseidon maritime surveillance aircraft, and also the Triton UAV platforms, which will be housed down at the Edinburgh Air Base. And this doesn't even begin to consider the opportunities that are presenting in adjacent markets such as space, cyber, and artificial intelligence and machine learning. A local establishment of Lot 14 and also the location of the Australia Space Agency headquarters in Adelaide further proof of the scale of the opportunities that are currently emerging in South Australia, and it's an area for where we're particularly lucky to have a Premier and government who are so passionate about and willing to invest in making sure that there's continued growth there. That brings me back to my opening remarks about the skills challenge and what we can collectively do to achieve our goals. Research we conducted earlier this year revealed that from 1,000 young people surveyed between 16 and 24 years old, almost half of them, 47%, said they expect to work in industries that don't even exist yet, which is exactly what they're being told. It's certainly something I emphasise with my own kids who are only 8 and 10 at the moment. So part of our remit as leading defence companies is to ensure that we have plans in place to attract that much needed talent to defence. We employ some of the most skilled people in Australia working with unique systems and solutions to solve complex problems, but we need more. And we all have a role to play to ensure that we build that pipeline of talent and entice skilled professionals from across the nation in what is a really competitive market. So how can we build that pipeline? Well, we're focused on 3 key areas at BAE Systems. Firstly, I think we need to better communicate the opportunities in defence. Now, I think some of you might be there thinking that defence seems to get its fair share of headlines. But I'm really talking about getting beyond those headlines and communicating to those people who are wanting to attract to the defence sector. making sure that they're aware of the breadth of opportunities, the type of complex work that we work on, the challenging tasks, and the opportunities to have a lifelong career in a sector working for multinational companies with global reach right here in Adelaide. There are many ways in which we can do this. There's advertising, there's media strategies, there's stakeholder engagement. But at the end of the day, word of mouth is often the most effective strategy to try and sell that message. I know those of us that work in the industry have a key role to play in terms of spreading the word, and it's incumbent on everyone that sort of works in these sort of disciplines to be aware of those opportunities and making people aware of the types of careers that can be had within the defence sector. We also need to look at the next generation and how we inspire students to study in those STEM disciplines and STEM programs. BAE Systems is currently investing a lot of time and resources to build interest in STEM programs and make children and families aware of the opportunities for fulfilling careers in defence and also in adjacent sectors like space and cyber. Part of this involves not only reaching out to schools and engaging directly with primary and secondary students, but also talking to the parents and the grandparents, who are often some of the biggest influences of children as they make those career choices early in their education path. Collaboration with academia is the other really key task that we're looking at the moment in terms of how we take that pipeline and build it and grow it and make sure that it's fit for purpose and that we have those right people in the right place at the right time when we need them to deliver these huge once-in-a-generation programs. Academia needs investment that fosters long-term partnerships, supports critical research and development, and promotes commercialisation of both ideas, technology, and intellectual property. I think there's more engagement that I've seen in the last 3 to 5 years within academia than I've seen in the entire 13 years that I've been working in the defence sector, and it's really fostering a collaborative environment where there's a thirst to be making sure that we're all working to the same goal. On this front, we're also working closely with state and federal governments and also newly formed bodies like the National Naval Shipbuilding College to ensure that the academic institutions and our schools have the right curriculum that's fit for purpose and meets the needs of industry, not just today, but in 5, 10, 15 years' time. Attracting people to South Australia in some of these tight labour markets as well, and it's going to be a challenge filling some of these roles, is going to be another key area of focus, and it's going to require creativity both from government and business working together to work on strategies to make sure it's an attractive place for people to migrate to when they're aware of the opportunities within the South Australian market. So just to summarise, I hope that's provided some insight into some of the activities and some of the key programs that are happening in South Australia at the moment. It's clearly a really exciting time for the sector, but there's probably 3 things I want to leave you with. 1, it's an incredibly exciting time in South Australia. There's a lot of growth and it's already started. 2, we're making really great progress in some of the key programs that we're working on. We've talked about frigates, we've talked about John, but there's a lot of great work happening around the sector at the moment, and that's spawning into other areas like cyber and space. So we're seeing great collaboration and a great sense of partnership as we like to lock in that growth. But the 3rd one, it's probably my key point, is the challenge that we have, and it's a collective challenge of both government and academia and industry and everyone in this room, is we need to fill that talent pipeline. We've been handed a once-in-a-generation opportunity with some of these programs, and it's incumbent on us to make sure that we've got the right skills in the right places at the right time to deliver on these key programs. And we need everyone to be out there selling that message. So we need you, we need your friends, we need your colleagues, and we're going to need your children to help make this challenge. So thanks for your time today. I'm more than happy to take questions. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. Anything I'll cover today. So thanks.